Are you aware of a scathing email from the Pennsylvania Hazmat to Unified Command indicating they were not included in the incident response? And was Pennsylvania Hazmat included in any of these decisions? And if so, if you could list us who they were and when they were included in the decision-making process for the vent and burn.
Pardon me. Senator, my understanding is that from the moment of the accident, we worked to be transparent and cooperative with various state, local, and federal authorities. And the response was managed under the unified command structure established shortly after midnight with the local fire chief serving as the incident commander. Our role in that process was to provide unified command and the incident commander all the relevant information that we could. And my understanding is that state and local authorities, including those from Pennsylvania, were involved.
Were you on a telephone call on or about Sunday, February 5th, 2023 with Governor Shapiro and Governor DeWine and PEMA Director Patfield when a decision was made to release and burn the deadly chemicals creating phosgene gas, yes or no?
Senator, I was not on that phone call.
Were the governors asked for input in that decision-making process?
Senator, the ultimate decision made by Unified Command under the leadership of the incident commander was made on Monday, February 6th, based on the conditions on the ground as we knew them. There was concern about an uncontrolled catastrophic explosion that would shoot harmful chemicals and shrapnel throughout the area. And so the decision made by Unified Command under the direction of the incident commander was a controlled vent and burn.
If I could just clarify something here. So I joined the Army in the 80s. I'm an old soldier. And in that environment, we were all trained in nuclear, biological, chemical warfare. And any chemical release was never called controlled by any of us because there's atmospherics, of course, that weigh in and determine or direct the course these winds will blow or the moisture air might take it. We don't control atmospheric dispersion. We could guess at it. So I can't accept any idea that any of this was controlled. Once something is set loose, it's up to the elements. But Senator Muth has a brief question.
Yeah, since you're on this line of questioning, I just need you to clarify, Mr. Shaw. You said that the incident command person was the local fire chief, correct?
The incident commander, which led Unified Command, is the local Fire Chief Drabeck. Yes, ma'am.
So the local fire chief led the entire operation on the ground, including the decision of the burn.
Senator, there were state, federal, and local authorities there as well, and he was in close contact with the governor of Ohio.
So who ultimately then, I guess maybe for the public's sake and my own, can you list who's in the Unified Command? Like who are those entities or people or agencies?
Senator, I can give you a specific list. I'm happy to follow up. I can tell you that it included federal, state, and local agencies from Pennsylvania and from Ohio.
Okay, I'm just trying to understand like who is comprised in this decision-making process based on, because I don't know, I'm not a part of Unified Command. I guess I'm confused then if there's this collaborative effort and then it's ultimately the local fire chief's final say on what happens. Is that, like, who made the final decision of we're going to do this burn? We had a previous hearing where there was mention of modeling, which was my part of the subpoena that was declined to be responded to about what is this modeling data that was in consideration by Unified Command. And I'm just trying to understand that piece as to how this all happened.
So if I could jump back in here, and please do address that question, but I'm going to back it up here. So I've served in complex inter-service, interagency, multinational organizations. There's always somebody, even if it's consent around the table, there's always somebody that pulls the trigger. There's always somebody that says, okay, we're going to do this. And I find it hard to believe that the local fire chief would be the one making the decision to set an explosion off to ignite 8 carloads worth of toxic chemicals. So what both myself and Senator Muth are after is who gave the nod and the authorization specifically. Who was the trigger man? Who was the guy that said, yes, we're going to do this after going around the table or what have you? Who was the individual that made a decision?
Senator, thank you for that question. I understand your point. My understanding is that the Unified Command was aligned on this, and it was ultimately the decision of the incident commander and fire chief in conjunction with Governor DeWine, who was there as well.
And what role, since you're just mere feet from the Pennsylvania border, especially when you dug that trench, which I surmise you built towards the east, because if you built the trench west to dump the chemicals into, it would have been downtown East Palestine. No question was asked to the Shapiro administration on their thoughts about this then.
Senator, my understanding is there were state and local authorities from Pennsylvania there as well, and I can tell you that my understanding is that Governor DeWine was in direct contact with Governor Shapiro.
So in this regard, we received testimony that indicated prior to the decision to ignite these catastrophic toxic chemicals, it was 1 car's worth of toxins that were discussed. Director Padfield said the next day he was told 8 cars would be burned in the end. Additionally, he said the analysis said that the toxic elements released in this burn, which is never controlled, this burn, initially the slide from Norfolk Southern, we're told, was 70% toxins, phosgene, and other very dangerous chemicals. And the next day he said only 1% would be toxic chemicals as a result of the burn. I don't know where these numbers came from. We definitely need to get our hands on that. I do know we subpoenaed this data here. Will you be forthcoming and be able to provide us with this data, as well as the names of all those involved in this decision-making cycle? I know that local fire chief was not the guy on the ground making the final decision on this. Was allegations last week in Congress that this was more a business decision to get the trains running again rather than it was best for the safety of the people. If it was for the safety of the people, the soil would have been removed and the chemicals would have been removed without a burn, as much as possible. And so we need to know who pulled the trigger. So who exactly was the guy or gal behind the scenes there? And the Unified Command Structure said, yeah, we need to do this. And then went around the table, asked for everyone's consent.
Senator, the Unified Command, my understanding, was aligned around the decision. It was led by the incident commander, who was speaking very closely with Governor DeWine.
What role did you play in the authorization to release and then detonate this vent and burn?
Senator, the role of Norfolk Southern throughout the process was to be as transparent as possible and provide as much information to Unified Command about the situation.
You told Congress under oath last week that, quote, Unified Command decided to vent and burn the deadly chemicals because they were focused solely on the health and safety of the community, unquote. But PEMA Director Padfield, who was on the so-called Unified Command phone call with Governor Shapiro and Governor DeWine to authorize the vent and burn, just testified before the Pennsylvania House hearing last week that he was concerned that the reason you decided to release and detonate was a business decision, as I mentioned before, inferring you want to get the trains running again at the fastest moment rather than safely remove the chemicals. What is your thoughts on Randy Padfield's statement? Is that true?
Yes, thank you for that question, Senator. I have a different perspective on that, and I'll note that there was a 6th pressurized car that was not venting, that we did not perform the vent and burn upon because of the fact that it was in a different environmental condition than the other cars.
If the Shapiro administration objected, would you have not made the decision to vent and burn?
Senator, that decision was made by Unified Command.
And once again, as Senator Muth asked, who exactly is in the Unified Command? Who was that? How many people? Who were they? What agencies? What states?
Senator, we're happy to provide you a list. There were state and local authorities and federal authorities from Pennsylvania and from Ohio.
And lastly, before I hand it over to my colleagues, Pennsylvania residents were told to evacuate into Ohio, showing that the real concern was that the modeling showed that Pennsylvania would have the chemical plume from the so-called vent and burn blowing over that, according to the atmospheric dispersion study that we saw from NASA. Did Pennsylvania members of the Unified Command order no evacuation center set up in Pennsylvania, or was that your order directing people to flee into Ohio?
Senator, I can't comment on that. That was not Norfolk Southern's order.
What role did EPA play in this decision-making cycle?
Senator, I don't have an answer for that.